I am Steph. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Avo. We have just come from a full day on site with Delivery Hero. The Avo team is actually based in Iceland and Boston and LA and Alabama even. I never actually expected to hire anyone in Alabama when I started Avo, but here we are. And so we all flew in here today to spend some time with one of our favorite design partners, which is, of course, a huge company. And scaling data quality with a huge company like this is very top of mind for us and very top of mind for them. And so it's fantastic to be able to have this event right here together. How is my audio? Is this okay? Nice. I sort of feel like I'm speaking super loudly because I have a tendency to speak very loudly, but I'm holding back a little bit. But maybe I'll just speak like this. Speak. No, testing. Great. This is great. So we are here to talk about scaling data quality. I will quickly run through sort of the backstory of why we ended up doing that with Avo and some of our hypotheses behind why we're doing what we're doing and what we actually think people, just companies in general, need to do independent of any kind of a software solution that they create, really. Then we will hear from Vaishali, who is a product leader or product manager for building internal governance solutions or just general event-based solutions for Delivery Hero, which of course spans a wide variety of brands that deliver food between one place to another and other things all over the world. So this is definitely a huge problem for them. Yeah, went to sleep. Okay, but at least now we know what time it is everywhere. And then we will hear also from Alberto, yay, Alberto, yay, who is at OneFootball and has been working with us for a while and provided immense great feedback to our product, and we really like that, but also just to this problem space, and has been knowledge sharing with all sorts of colleagues throughout the world on it. And we're always getting like, oh, I heard about Avo from Alberto. So perfect opportunity for you to share your wisdom with the crowd. And then we'll have a quick panel at the end where we'll also be joined by Alistair, who is here somewhere, yeah, Director of Data Governance, and many more things, I think, at Delivery Hero, as well as the other speakers. Right, okay. How are we? We'll try our best. Yeah, that's I'm actually gonna sneak and before we start, just do a quick toast. Here's to data quality. Cheers, yay. Woo! Top of mind for us all. Okay. All right, so my talk is called Maturing Data Cultures. It's very close to my heart. It's sort of something that I've been obsessing over for, I think, around 13 years or so, which is a long time, and never thought I'd be here, but here we are. Quickly on Avo, we guarantee data quality upstream. I'm sorry about this beautiful thing here. We're sort of figuring out what we have to do to record the talk and also display slides. So bear with me on this one. What that means, I'll go into detail with you. But ultimately, we have customers like Delivery Hero, OneFootball, Fender, Adobe, IKEA, Boost, Walt. Huge companies, but also startups and scale-ups to help them make sure they are thinking about their data quality very far upstream instead of being in reactive damage control downstream and forever patching up bad data. And we'll go deeper into what this means later. Ultimately, though, our mission really is to inspire better data cultures so that teams can build better user experiences. So while we are obsessed over data quality, that's just one of the angles we think is very important to solve so that companies can actually leverage their data to build great products, whether those are sort of internal data products or actually generative AI products that their end users actually use. And for that, you need really high quality data, right? Who am I to talk about this? Like I said, this started a while ago. Before anything, I was a philosopher and a mathematician. Went there into genetics and doing like distributed computations before we had like Redshift and BigQuery available in the world. And also we had to do everything on-prem because of data security issues. And so that was sort of, I dipped my toe into data engineering and writing code, although I would never be hired as a software engineer, of course, anywhere. But that's where I learned how to code. And from there, I joined a company called QuizUp, and I inherited this type of a mess. Does this resonate with anyone here? Raise your hand. Yes, thank you, exactly. It's a bit of a trigger. I think we have some merge also, some triggering merge. If you're interested, I'll show you. Sorry about the typo on the tote bag here. Terrible. So reach out to an Avo team member if you're interested in that. Anyway, so I joined and inherited this. This was back in 2013. And over a 3-year painful period, we built some internal solutions to actually prevent this problem from happening. And also, of course, like fix the existing data debt that we had. And that was very painful. But in the end, around literally 2016, we had this beautiful way of working where everyone was just shipping great product updates with great implementation of analytics events, and they were all consistent, and we could finally build our machine learning models and have fun with data. But it took a while, and then fast forward a couple of years later, I started on a company with a few people from QuizUp, and we were working on a new product, and we were optimizing our sign-up conversion, and we found out that the sign-up method was 98% email and only 2% phone number. We were working on the onboarding conversion. And we were like, oh, great. Let's just drop phone number to simplify the process and everything will be fine and dandy. It turns out that when we did that, we removed the phone number sign-up method and our conversion rate to completely create an account went from 81% to 46%. As a data person, obviously my first thing is there's something wrong with the data somewhere. I don't know what's happening, you know? Turns out that this isn't what the data looked like. The sign-up method was not 98% email and 2% phone number. We actually had a 52% phone number. I can see faces are painful here. People are sort of triggered a little bit. That's the intent of this, because this is a problem that's like a missing bee. That's so seemingly small, right? I can see you're laughing and nodding, and it's like, and I can feel your stone in your gut, because it's just like people that haven't been here, they don't really understand how severe this problem is. But what is the actual impact of this problem? We actually made an incorrect product decision, right? Based on this data. Okay. Then we spent weeks of work on implementing our product update based on this decision. Then we actually had to do more work on reversing the change that we actually figured out was wrong. And during that entire period, we had a severe hit to our sign-up conversion. Okay, so what does that look like? This is a tiny startup. A tiny startup for us. This was like maybe 2 months in total around this. I mean, maybe not full time, but a lot of time wasted around exactly this work. That's a lot of time in startup land. And for big companies, this is taking months or years. And so a tiny bee can cause a lot of trouble. It's sort of the point around this. And if we look at the root cause really around the problem, if we look at the typical analytics workflow, meaning what are we doing to measure the success of our product? We start here with a product, some product changes that are sort of configured in a Figma file or a doc, or just a Slack conversation or something, or a GitHub issue, Notion file, something. There's a product manager that sort of defines the spec for a product change. From there, maybe you define metrics and event structures in a sheet or an Airtable or a JSON file, but also maybe you just ping the developer and ask them to implement analytics for you. And then you sort of get feedback and request implementation. That typically happens in another location, doesn't happen in the same location. So you might make decisions and updates about what you're actually going to implement in tracking, but it only just happened sort of verbally. Nobody really knows that it actually happened. And the specs are already outdated before anyone starts implementing them, which is crazy. And then you implement these tracking calls in code, and you end up with all of these versions of song added. You have song added, you have playlist song added, you have song added with title case, you have add song with camel case, where the object and action have been switched. Endless possibilities for how the event actually ends up being implemented. And then you sort of try to validate. In some cases, you do some QA to confirm that the analytics implementation has actually happened according to the specification, but you have an outdated spreadsheet and you are only using your human eyes. And those maybe find something and you beg the developer to fix the implementation before you actually ship it. They probably don't have time or don't want to do it, and so they ship without it. But even if they did, then typically something sort of gets past you and you end up not actually fixing your data before you shipped it. Then you try to use your data in your analytics platform and you make the wrong product decision and you move on. So it's a terribly clunky process. Not very nice. So what is the, let's see, yeah. So what are we talking about here? Why does this happen and how can we move past it? I want to talk about sort of the journey of every single organization that I've ever worked with. The evolution, this says here. So we go from winging it. You have no data. You have just a group of people that are shipping products to the app store or whatever. And they sort of try to figure out somehow what to build. This is just the early version of whatever. You're not tracking anything. Then you go into the Wild West. You have every person for themselves implementing some sort of analytics event somewhere. And as you scale, you have every team for yourself implementing analytics events everywhere. And so you sort of have, hopefully maybe that the team in question is able to use their own data, but they might not even be able to do that. And then to sort of to fight against that, you introduce some sort of a centralized governance system that prevents people from being able to ship everything into production without actually fitting standards of analytics guidelines, event names, event properties, how to track things, all that stuff. But the ultimate goal is to provide a world where you have self-serve governance. You have people, domain teams, product teams, they are able to ship their own data without actually being bottlenecked by a centralized governance team. This is a scary process for most data people because we all know what happens in the Wild West. And the reality is most organizations live in sort of some sort of a twilight or a twilight zone maybe between all of these three. And I want to quickly compare them with the data mesh principles. Who here is familiar with the data mesh principles, or just like at least the buzz concept of data mesh? Yeah, great. I mean, they were introduced formally in like 2021, right? They were introduced formally, but this sort of describes a framework to describe how I think people that have been in data for a long time eventually think about how they want to structure their organization. So I will admit that when data mesh principles first arrived as a concept, I was a little bit allergic. I was like, whatever, this is just a new way of framing something we've all been talking about for a long time. But I've sort of graduated to think that this is a helpful framework to think about how we want to think about the world. And so I want to compare it with a journey from companies winging it to the Wild West to centralized governance, self-serve governance. Obviously, when we're in the winging it mode, we are not fulfilling any of them. Let's go by them step by step. We have domain-oriented ownership. That means every team or a domain could be like the playlist team at Spotify or something like that, or the onboarding team or the payments team at Patreon or something like that. Every team is able to own their own data and create their own data and manage their own data. That's the idea behind that principle. Data as a product, you're always treating data as a product, thinking about like, okay, we have really important stakeholders to think about, right? And ultimately, we're thinking about usability of our data products, end user. We're thinking about desirability. What is the market? How many people in the organization actually want this product? We're thinking about engineering feasibility. Does it even make sense to build this? Can we even build this? And business viability. Does it make sense to spend this amount of money on this problem? And sort of that's how we think about data as a product. These are the 4 pillars that Marty Kagan of Silicon Valley Product Group, it has introduced as like how to build products, good products. And that's the same as we should think about our data products internally. And then we look at the third one, and that's a self-serve data platform. This is also a sensitive subject, isn't it? Self-serve analytics, what does that mean to people? That's sort of like a triggering subject to a lot of people, because people don't really believe that it's possible to give people access to data without them interpreting it all wrong and making wrong decisions. And I subscribe to that. I'm not saying that anyone in the organization should be able to do anything with all data. But I am saying that it's really important that we empower people to make decisions on their own KPIs without having to go through a human, right? And then going deeper, then we have conversations about them. And then we have the federated governance piece, right? We have domain ownership and global governance type of thing, which is also sort of the vision that Avo is working towards for 2024. So from here, organizations graduate to the Wild West. Like I said, every team member or team for themselves, just any engineer implementing any analytics event. We maybe have a self-serve data platform because whatever they use to implement their analytics events, they will probably also be using that to analyze their data. But it's sort of work in progress, you know. Then from there, because we have so much terrible data, we actually migrate to some sort of a centralized governance like I talked about. And we definitely, from that, we sort of drop the domain ownership. We don't allow them to own anything anymore. We're like, no, you can't do anything without going through us. You stupid person. Is sort of what we're saying to them. And they don't like that. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. We're trying to treat data as a product for sure, but it's sort of like a work in progress. There's a lot of work to do still. We are trying and going for a self-serve data platform, but again, there's a lot of work to go there. Maybe even the domain teams have to actually go through a centralized governance team before they can use their data. Not great, but it's sort of at least graduating us to reliable data from very unreliable data. So it's like slow data, right? This is bad data. Here we have slow data. And then we sort of have the federated governance piece. But because the system is so terrible, people are sort of endlessly bypassing it. So we're not really having the federated governance system. And ultimately, we want to reach this self-serve governance where we have domains are able to self-serve themselves and govern themselves with proper guardrails set by the federated governance. But what actually gets us stuck in central governance, because that's typically where teams get stuck. And when I present this slide, that's always the question that I get is, but what happens next? How do we actually get there? And so I just want to quickly talk about why we're stuck in central governance. And I've touched, I think, on all of these. And this maybe should be a circle, because the first thing really is not on the slide. I haven't put it on here. The first step is we introduce central governance. And that's really the first step. Central governance can't keep up with development. Development and product development moves way faster than the humans in the central governance. Inconsistent data leaks into production. We are stuck forever patching up bad data. So we introduce a central governance system. Central governance can't keep up with the development. Inconsistent data leaks into production. Like, this is the system. This is the loop that we're stuck in. Sort of the data governance trap, really, I would say. And if we think about it a little bit, I think I've said all of these words out loud, really. Why are we stuck at patching up bad data? Why can't we actually move beyond central governance into some sort of a decentralized governance? Again, people bypass the system because it's heavy. So everyone just implements whatever they want, you know, and sort of ask for forgiveness later, really. Governors don't trust humans to read the manual. I think this is a huge part of it. We've talked to so many companies that have like 5 or 12 pages of like a Confluence page that has like a detailed description about the way that you should set up your analytics event and the tools that you should use and the naming convention that you should use and how you should use the property that also this team is using and all those things. People don't read the manual. That's a huge problem in the world, and that's why governors also don't trust humans to read the manual, rightfully so. Okay, and so the governors are forced to be a human bottleneck. That's the only way that they can handle this. But the plan of action for graduating from this. This is sort of like fairly generic advice, I would say. And obviously this is sort of the way we have thought about building Avo from the get-go. We started building Avo in 2018, and today we're so lucky to serve so many customers, incredible customers that are helping us figure out how to scale data quality, right? In huge organizations, but also in early stage startups, anywhere from there. We need to have a governance system that actually works for the end user. And that's sort of like, it's not a simple feat. A spreadsheet isn't really that. It doesn't do the job. It helps maybe in some way, but it doesn't sort of really get us there. So we're still stuck at like humans solving this problem and reviewing. We need to have really strong automated guardrails so that the end users don't actually have to read the manuals. I think that is a really key problem, and there are ways to build software around this. You know, we can use all sorts of things, Git actions, and build in some checks in a spreadsheet or some linter in a JSON file or whatever. Like, but that's a really, I think, important part of this scaling data quality is try to build some guardrails so that humans don't actually have to review. And then I think this is a really tricky part, and we've had some great conversations about this, for example, with Alistair today, pulling in the right reviewers at the right time. So in most organizations that we talk to, we have a single to like 10 to 15 people governing releases of analytics updates. And just like analytics, like you know, in the world where we want people to be able to make decisions based on data and then move on, it doesn't scale for that world to have every person have to get their insights from a human. It just doesn't scale. And so that's why we get stuck in this trap of hiring more and more analysts, because the product managers can't do this on their own. The exact same thing applies for this, like having only a single human being able to control or sort of govern what kind of changes go through. And this is just what we've heard so many times from our users, right? It's like who actually owns the changes that we're making, or who is a stakeholder and an owner of anything from like a metric to an event to a property that we actually want to influence for the business. And getting this right is a bit tricky. Like, this is the inspiration from the GitHub model. And GitHub doesn't really solve this very elegantly for data governance because it's a file-based system. So you can't have an owner of a property, because that would be the same as having an owner of a specific file somehow, like a line of a file in a GitHub repository. And that's just not where we are with that. And so we sort of have to solve this with like this elegant, like complicated way of assigning owners to these entities that properties are, or property values, or events. So it's an interesting technical problem to solve, and it's the prerequisite for us being able to really scale data quality. So I think that's a great segue into quickly talking about sort of a few of the things that we have on the horizon at Avo. Today, we split our product into these 3 pillars, and I'm going to talk about these here very quickly. Ultimately, it's an inspiration to also build. If you want to build, you can build. But ideally, we create a world where you don't have to build, right? And we can solve this for you. That's our mission. You have to think about ways to plan and prevent. And so one of the ideas there is have a global namespace, meaning you can't have events that have similar names. Some systematic way to prevent users from being able to even create events that have a similar name to another event, or a property that has a similar name to another property. You have to create some sort of a way for having collaboration with branched workflows. So a JSON file on GitHub is a really good start, but that's not very human readable to people that don't love reading JSON files. So that's sort of the challenge around that. You need to make sure you're sort of distributing your schemas to all of your other schema registries. Otherwise, there's no way of having a single source of truth, right? And then you have to really make it simple for the data producers to implement your analytics events. So how I think about this is that we're trying to make the data consumer life easier, right? We're trying to build a data culture where people can leverage the data. To me, a really important part of that is making it just super easy and straightforward for engineers to actually implement the analytics event into code without having to go through a lot of hassle. So for example, auto-generate instructions based on the changes that you're making, having some sort of a type-safe code generation, and then instantly being able to validate that they've implemented things correctly according to the specification, so that it doesn't have to wait for like 3 days or 2 months until someone else sort of stumbled upon a data bug that they created. They just need to be able to fix it instantly. Just like any sort of implementation bug that they do in their regular code in their IDE. They just know it. They know it instantly. And then some way of sort of finding and fixing the accidents that still bypass the system, right? That's, I think, very important. And this is all sort of learnings from dealing with these problems throughout the hundreds of customers that we have and have worked with on sort of starting this journey. Some way of visualizing the data issues that you have today and any new data issues that come up. Some way of customizing alerts, because you'll have a lot of issues and you don't want a single channel to have all of your alerts. You want like issues that are specific to the domain that you're building for. And then some way, if you're starting from scratch, use your actual live data to build the current state of your event is something that we recommend. And this is like exporting some major data structure permutations from your SQL database or something, figure out which of the 20 events for game started should we actually use, and then you sort of decide that the rest should be permutated or merged into the other ones. What's coming up next for us, and sort of the sort of the alignment with what I was just talking about, is we've had this domain-driven ownership within a tracking plan, or we have a tracking plan, which I was talking about earlier, and now we are sort of working on making it feasible for any large team or organization to operate within the same namespace. What this means is domain-specific tracking plans, for example. So domains, or like the playlist team, can own a specific event or a property. We will have tailored views and notifications for those specific domains. And what's a really interesting thing, and we'll go deeper into to anyone that sort of comes and wants to talk about it after the fact, after this talk, but I don't have time to go into the details now. Event variants within a global namespace. We thought that the internet was gonna go sideways when we released this to our users. They got so excited about it. And then domain-specific reviews, like I said. I think this is such an important part about scaling data quality, is making sure humans, like there isn't a single governor that has to review everything. We will pull in like Clara from the post-order team and Sölvi from the product team to review like different parts of the changes that teams are making, and sort of intelligently assign reviewers based on the changes that we're doing. And then the next step is interesting as well. So we'll introduce the systemized governance, which is what I was talking about, guardrails. We want to remove human bottlenecks and empower anyone to design consistent data. This has been a vision for us for a really long time, and already a lot of things in place in the product that actually help people do this. But we can go even further. So an example here is someone is trying to create the event show referral panel, and there's a space between all of them. So this would be like the action show, and then there's an object called referral panel. And that's like a classic thing. You can define a naming convention for something like this. You should always have the object first and then the action, something like that. And then you want to maybe create like different separators. If there are many words in the name of the object or the action, then that should be separated by an underscore. The separation between the object and the action should be separated by a dot. These are just examples that we will be doing automatically to empower anyone on the domain team to actually automatically create clean data. Another example is panel is actually a potential synonym for a banner. Don't create a duplicate of it, use the existing property that already exists. So the next sort of graduation from it is actually the multi-workspace organization. And that's why we're so excited to be here with Delivery Hero today, because obviously Delivery Hero is a huge organization with, I don't even know how many different brands under their umbrella. Each one of those brands has been building a tracking plan for ages themselves. And so how do we actually unite that? And sort of this is sort of that vision. Make it feasible to enforce global requirements in order to leverage data from across an entire organization. With this, I will actually say thank you for now. And you will always be able to go to avo.app to learn more or reach out directly to me. You have the contact information right there. Also, we will have some questions available in the panel later. So I think we'll, with that, give it over to Vaishali. Thank you so much.
First of all, thanks a lot, our team, for coming here. And also, just to set this straight right, I'm going to go a bit deep into a specific problem. And I will also like to use this opportunity that we have some of the brands and global services already that we are talking basically. So we'll also like to use this opportunity to talk to them that what are the solutions that we have for the real problems they have. So it's kind of both, but we'll set the context right there. Yeah, so first, who am I? I am Vaishali Tripathi, and I'm a product manager for the tracking domain, which is basically tracking the user behavior data, capturing all the analytical events. And yeah, I've been in Delivery Hero for more than 2.5 years now. So I'm very much deep into this problem, working on this for a while. So I'm a bit passionate about it. So yeah, bear with me there. Yeah. Yeah. So what we are going to talk about is I am going to use this as a case study. You can consider that as we in this year worked on improving the quality of search use cases. So when we say search product and vendor search on the application, you go and click on the search bar and search for something. And we are going to talk about what were the quality challenges that we had in that case and what kind of solutions we are bringing up with Avo to solve those quality challenges that we identified. And then apart from Avo, what kind of governance principles that we apply in order to increase the quality. To set the state right again, we started with around 80% quality, and now as of today, we have 94.5, and that we did in 2.5. Still there's 15 days to this quarter. So yeah, I think it's going to be really excited. Also, I want to learn more from you if you have faced the similar data quality challenges and governance issues and how you are solving this within your organization. Yeah, we can have a chat afterwards. I would be happy to learn more about that. Okay. Before we go into exactly on the quality issue, I wanted to tell you a bit about the Delivery Hero and how we operate. So as some of you would already know, Delivery Hero has acquired many brands over the years, 40 plus, as I know. And most of these brands are merged now into different, we call it platform, but for here we are going to use it brands. So for example, we have this Food Panda icon. It's actually a platform which has Foodora in Europe, Food Panda, and Yemek in Middle East. So the three brands just sending the data from each. And in Delivery Hero, we also believe in providing the localized experience to our users. So we kind of a hybrid environment of working. One, we have brands which are building internal functions, which are local to their own needs, that they are local services, as we call them. And then we at Central, in parallel, we are building these central functions which are solving the common problem across all these brands. For example, global search. This is what we're going to talk about. So global search is just a service that provides the searching functionality to all these brands, and they are integrating with these brands to improve the search experience for our users. And similarly, we have like EdTech, which is basically sponsored campaigns that we run over Delivery Hero platforms, and logistics and etc. And what we are is data platform. So I'm part of the data platform. That's also a central service, which is providing the data solutions to Delivery Hero, all organizations, which means all the verticals that are central on this side, and then all the brands that are on that side. So we are kind of providing the solutions around that, right? And today we are going to talk about Persis. So let me tell you a bit more about what Persis is. And I'm a product manager for Persis. It's a in-house user behavior tracking data. And we are trying to track the data in real time to address the needs of the both sides that we saw, the brands, and then also the global teams. Now, what we do is to tell you just in brief, capturing the data from their applications, iOS, ISDK, web, etc., sending this either to BigQuery for analysis or real-time access for real-time use cases, such as if you want to charge the vendors for shop click events or fraud cases, etc. But the important part is the same platform, same data is being used for global services, which are the logistics or global search, and it's also catering to all the brands' local needs. So I think this is where the complexity lies in Delivery Hero organization. Yeah. And also to tell you a bit of scale about what we are talking about in terms of data quality, we have around 4 to 5 billion events ingested in this on a daily basis. And with Vuva onboarding, there will be another 2 to 3 billions events that will be there. And in terms of events, I think for Vuva this morning, we were talking about more than 500 or 1,000 events that are analytical events that are generated. And also for this global services requirement, we have around 50 or 60 that are being used by these events. And we are trying to reduce them or optimize them as well. So each of these brands have 500 plus events defined internally on their side, and then we have some global requirements there. So this is kind of the scale we have in terms of the data quality issues that we face and the governance challenges we face. I think Steph provided a lot more information about the governance part. I think we are going to have a very interesting panel discussion with Alistair here. Yep. So now moving on to how we define the tracking. So I'm just trying to set the stage so that you understand how we are defining the tracking and what exactly is the problem. I'm using the same terminology that Steph has been using and that Avo uses, tracking plan. So any global requirement, let's say global search we are talking about, goes into the global tracking plan. And any local requirements, which are brands' internal needs, they're also part of the local tracking plan. So what happens is, for example, in the global tracking plan, what's defined is whatever request or event is triggered by search, basically user clicking on the bar on or any search related event, that should have the search request ID so that they know that this event was triggered by search and they can use it for analysis and various use cases. Similarly, on EdTech is also interested for sponsored click. So whenever there is a sponsored click, they want to know that this was triggered by EdTech, and so that they can go and charge the vendor for the sponsored part. And while in local requirements, we also want them to implement these, and then they have their own needs. So this is basically how we are set up. And we, as of now, at least, we can't go around governance at the moment. But yeah, if Avo has a solution for it in future, we will be more than happy to onboard on that and work around it. Right. So local team, just to point, local team just care about this, and the global teams about cares about this. And we, from the central process and governance, we care about both, right? And this is what we are trying to solve. Now, as I've been talking about the global search use case, so we'll go deep into what exactly kind of data quality and governance issues that we identify. Don't be scared of the big presentation. It's quite simple here. So as you can say, let's go just a workflow that how this thing happens in a pre-Avo world for us, right? So we have the brands, global search, let's say, asking for a feature to be implemented for autocomplete. When you type on the search tab, then it automatically suggests some suggestions, and that sends a request on the backend to fetch out the vendors or product which user should refer to. So what happens is product manager on their side align with the brand on how to do what needs to be done. Then they involve the product analyst to define the tracking requirement that gets shared to us and all the local brand, and then we kind of analyze it. At this layer, when the local brand analyze what this global team is asking for, they see sometimes that they already have similar implementation internally for their own use cases. And what they can't, what these brand would not do is to change them, right? So they want them to adopt to their own requirement. And how they're requiring sharing this requirements is spreadsheets, Jira, Miro, I think all the things that Steph shared exactly how the process works for us as well. So they're keeping the track. And at this stage, just can imagine we have 7 platforms, so 7 different spreadsheets sharing that what has changed from what they asked and how the brand is sending it. So that's a huge gap or mapping that we need to keep track of. And then they share this requirement to engineers, and then engineers implement on this part, and then send the data. And yay, hooray, we have the quality and the search team is going to consume this data, right? In parallel, I just threw in the edtech because they might also be consuming the same events. Now, what are the problems with this specific flow? One is this global search product analyst, they don't know how to scalably track what they have changed here for brand specific. So let's say Foodpanda is using the word shop ID to refer the vendor. However, here we are asking for vendor codes. So just keeping this mapping and keeping this mapping for each of this brand. And that's one very, very small requirement that we have, right? The second problems arrive is that when product analysts look at it, they also see the different validate criteria that we require or requirements we have. And they don't know how to provide this different global or local quality criteria to engineers so that they can validate and how they maintain on their side. Then another leg is for engineers. They get so many requirements from so many places in different Jira, Miro, spreadsheet, etc. So they don't know what to validate and for what use cases. So where they have to send the events, where they don't have to send the events, where they should send the search request ID, where they should send the NMR request ID or edtech request ID that we talked about. So this is basically another challenge that we have on the engineering side. And the last is when the data comes to the product manager, they don't say that what is the data quality, they actually use different words, but let's say that they're just talking about the data quality here. And in parallel, there is this guy from edtech who has their report working and everything working. Suddenly someone changed here and override their events, and then things broke for them. And then they're clueless what's happening, and they come again to us or to the brand directly that what has broken. So this is basically the current or previous, I would say, the process to some extent that we have here. So we have now 3 main problems that we identified in the whole entire process. One is incomplete or inaccurate tracking data definition. That means tracking events doesn't have description, tags, what kind of triggers, who are the owners, or what is the validation criteria, whether this event should be sent or not, or property should be sent or not, etc. Then we have insufficient and complex tracking ownership management, as we have different brands and then different central functions between these different squads working on different part of the component of the application. So there are a lot of stakeholders who are involved, and we don't know who should own what part. We lose the track of it after one time. So we're also trying to solve that problem at that scale as well. Then the third part is, because we are talking about the data quality, this is what we identified from enormous number of interviews, is that there is either very complex validation criteria that is being shared to engineer, or there is unspecified validation criteria. Sometimes they don't know exactly what is quality. So if I go and ask, let's say, some brand engineer and just say, do you know the criteria for validation quality for search? There is a very good chance they just don't know about it, that what they need to send. And this is what we are trying to fix. And how we are fixing that is with Avo, right? So first thing that we are doing is centralizing this entire requirement documentation in Avo. So what we have done is we created the different tracking plans. One, we have the global, and then we have for brand specific. And now we are just linking each of these events or requirements there. So this helps us first to standardize and centralize everything. We want this to be central source of truth of any data requirement. And we also want to have the approval process and everything around this as well. This also is, I think our recently released this one more feature, I think, or it's in the roadmap, is to control the modification of any event. So we want to use it if you're modifying anything which is used by one or more central functions or global services, then they don't allow it without an approval process. So I think that helps a lot, because engineers are looking just at the local things and they don't care if they mess up with the global thing, or they're not aware of it, what if they mess up with the whole thing. So I think this here, this complete documentation will help them to know what they can change and where they actually need to go and reach out to see if anything else will be broken within any other function. Yeah. And I think cherry on the top is that this is accessible to all Delivery Hero. So basically, if we have Stephen from Bua here, so Bua just want to see how Pandora is implementing something, they can just go and search on Pandora and see what are, how they are configuring the search or what kind of events they're tracking. So I think it just brings that collaboration environment within the Delivery Hero brands as well on the tracking side. That's what we are doing with the centralizing, but also what we are planning is streamlining the governance also with the Avo. So the complex structure you saw, instead of using the various different things, we are just going to simplify the process. We create the requirement in Avo tracking plan, then we get the approvals, and that also includes brand steward, which is basically representation of a brand towards central team. So they will already be part of it. Then we merge into the tracking plan. Then we push it into the local, where engineers would use it to implement it. Engineers would not look at this part unless out of curiosity, but they're just supposed to use this. And if there is any local within the brand process, they will go through this, implement it, ingest it. And because we are defining the entire validation criteria at our tool or our persist tracking, we're also working around bringing the validations with this definition. And that means we can proactively monitor the data quality, and then we can create an alerts brands in advance that, okay, the data quality is down for search use case by this %, and please have and fix it. And then also we alert search teams so that they know about that this issue already exists, rather than taking another week to find it out because of another. As I already talked about the validation part, so what we are doing at Delivery Hero is providing the shift left approach to improve the quality at the start, at the implementation itself. And how we are doing is we are implementing the validation in staging, basically. That means whenever in the testing environment, so everything that's defined in Avo would be validated against each event that being sent. Then we are also, before ingestion in pre-production, so we have this enable this debug mode where you can send the event to purchase, and then it will again validate against the definitions. And then the last is post-ingestion. So this kind of validation and monitoring. And this is how we are governing that once the data quality events is ingested, the data quality is desired. And also brands can keep track of that, what or global requirement services or users can keep track of what is the data quality. Can they use this or not? Is they need to go and speak with these brands to increase it further so that the performance analysis and their use cases have a better output for it. Right? How we are doing it is with Avo. So Avo provides this functionality to import the tracking plan that they shared into, we are using to import it in BigQuery in JSON format. And then what to validate is coming from here. So we are validating completeness. So basically ensuring every request that has gone to search backend is also sent to Persis, so that the backend and front-end events are same in numbers. Then funnel completeness, ensuring that the user funnel is complete. We know what they sent and when they dropped out and why they dropped out, etc., etc. Then we are also having the correctness. So that's existence of the property is what is the data type. And then we also have these regex validations, I think, which our team is work in plan. That means how the property should be defined. That's really important for the data quality. Then conditional validation, I already shared this example, when the event is triggered by search, they want search request ID to be present. Let's say in a shop click event, whenever you click a shop, search request ID should be there if it was a search driven. But if it was a sponsored event, then there should be EdTech ID because it's coming out of a campaign. So these are kind of the conditional validation that we are trying to build with Avo as well. And I was working on this, and I think next 3 months or so, they will be delivering these features and we will be onboarding. So far, we have been working on the workaround solution. Then that's basically on what we are using with Avo, but I would also like to share what other governance principles that we applied in order to improve this search specific quality. So we followed the Six Sigma for increasing the data quality for search, and now we are working with other services to increase this as well. It's nothing but defining the problem, measuring the size of the problem. So we actually went deep down by creating the dashboards that where exactly the problem lies in search quality. So just to give you an example, we identified a lot of requests in the backend were created by incident bots. And we needed to filter that out, that data, because it was not a very useful data or for search analytical use case as well. And then this was also creating this hawks that the data quality within tracking systems are not good, which is practically not the case. So we identified that problem. We identified the major quality issues are coming from there. Then we analyze this, and then we provide the solution to how to filter out and work with the search backend so that they can also understand that where this incident bots are coming in and how they can fix it for their own benefit as well, not just for the data quality from tracking environment. And how we are controlling is that we have built a lot of Datadog dashboards around by defining what is the quality criteria that search or global search team wants, and then creating anomaly on this. So now we have 95 and it drops to, let's say in 2 days to 91 or 90, then we just create a Slack alert to search team and also to Pandora team in case, Food Panda team in case it's coming from their side, is to that we have observed this issue, please fix it. And we also can tag like who are the respective stakeholders, and we want that to get this information from Avo that who is responsible for these events or these quality issues so that we can directly reach out to them and then they finally fix it. And this process has helped us analyze a lot of issues. So for just to give an example, we were working with Talabat team, which operates in Middle East. And what they did was they were implementing some SDK. And with this process, or this detection, we were able to find the issue within 3 hours, and they got the alert, and they had already released it and they fixed it. So I think otherwise they would have taken 3 or 4 days more to realize that there was an issue, and that could have led into the revenue process. Well, yeah. And apart from this, in general, what we are working is on data contracts. So if you are aware with the concept of data contracts, that's great. But if you're not, then it's basically the contract between the data teams who are sending the data plus who are consuming it. And what all it includes is basically what data should be part of the contract, what should be the frequency of the data, what should be the ingestion type of the data, ownership, SLAs around data quality, SLAs around how the new requirement should be, or the processes, various governance processes. And then, and also I think one of the most important thing that we think at data or analytical teams is that before sharing the requirement, share the business impact. And this in our experience has really made brands to implement anything that we ask for faster, because we have a very clear business impact and we are all here to make money and increase user experience. So we all take it very seriously. And if you get this, then we are definitely going to make everyone work for it. Yeah. So that's basically all. That's from my side. Any questions?
All around Europe, like the amount of data you mentioned, there's like 3 billion data sources.
Events, basically events that analytical events that comes into our platform around 4 to 5 billion. If I don't remember exact number, but I was sharing that we are onboarding Wuva now, which operates in Korea. So that means another 2 or 3 billion of events that would be sent. So this is the volume of the data that we are addressing with this solution.
I see. Okay, but then how are you like as a data team? You have a data mesh architecture, right? And so you have like as Delivery Heroes in the center so it can see all the data from everybody else?
Yes, central, yes, but we have data union built around it basically to control the access. And any team who is just part of central, like central logistics, us, they have the access to the data, but we don't have access to, let's say, PII data. So that's need basis. And then we are controlling that Food Panda can only see the data of Food Panda. They cannot see the data from, let's say, Wuva or any other part.
Mhm.
So that kind of basically consent-based or access methods that we have already in place. Yeah, and we are doing this on BigQuery.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me well? Perfect. So I would like to share 3 ideas about data governance. So I will not go in specifics. I think data governance is very hard and reusing solutions for OneFootball in another company. I guess even the solution we cook in OneFootball, if you try to reapply after 1 year, probably will not work. Even the time is a big factor. So these are 3 ideas. I like to think, disclaimer, maybe they are useless, maybe they will inspire you, maybe they will be useful. You will be the judge. If you want to know more about me, there is another slide, but I have also put the QR code, and this is OneFootball. You know, just download the app. You will help the company. So about me, usually everybody says about me, no, blame me, okay? Because I have been in Zalando, OneFootball, another couple of companies, and these are the things that you can blame me. So if you join Zalando and they are using Databricks, yeah, I'm the culprit. It was, so I would call it blame me, okay? Because you know, is the inheritance for the next generation of employees. Okay, who should we blame about this? You know, I'm one of them. And in bold, I have written the stuff that is right now very interesting for me. I'm an engineer, so engineers, they are attracted to problems, and we like to solve problems. And this is the last stuff that I'm heading, I'm trying to crack. So data platform, data governance, a mess. So let's start. Okay, so here we is how many? Okay, there is in the corner is how many? Okay, so let's start checking how much coffee we need here. Okay, because this is the first session I can understand. So guys, let's start with a puzzle. Okay, so we have a pond. Okay, and this pond there is an algae. Okay, this algae double every day. Okay. After 1 month, you visit the pond, and the pond is half covered with the algae. How many days will need the algae to cover completely the pond? 1? Who says more than 1? 30? Okay. Sorry? Okay, 1 day more. Okay. It double. Okay, so the answer is 1 day. But the point of this question is, first of all, check how much coffee we need, you know, because before start talking about data governance, this is a check. But my point is this, you know, this is basic math, but when you ask this in the domain, it becomes difficult. There are people that are very energized, they can answer and recognize the math problem immediately. But even if you know the math, maybe you make a mistake as you say 1 week, 1 day, well, I don't know, 1 month, who knows? Because our brain is very good with linear. Everything that is not linear, we need to really focus a lot. And this is my segue. I think data governance is a non-linear problem. So every time we try to solve data governance everywhere, it's a disaster because we need really to access 100% the full capacity of our brain. Okay, so this is the, okay. So this is the first idea. Actually, Stefania already mentioned this idea, the global namespace. I didn't prepare. I didn't know her slides. To be honest, it's just a coincidence. I hope we mean the same thing because there is a semantic problem. So what do we mean with this word or the other word? Who knows? But let's try. So try a global namespace. So we have the data. The data gets duplicated all the time, okay? And this is, is a problem for our reality. In an ideal world, you should have only one computer, all the data there, you make the questions there, infinite computational power, infinite storage, you get every answer immediately. But because you live in this world, there are the limits of physics, and then you need to lay out the data in different way based on the workloads. Okay, now we start duplicating the data because we live in the real world. And my idea for you is this. If we create a global namespace, if you're a developer, you start saying, oh my God, a global namespace, what are you talking about? I mean, state management is a disaster in software. If you start having a global namespace, it's like trying to write code like we used to do in the 70s. Impossible to understand what the heck is going on. But for data, I would argue that it makes sense. And why it makes sense is that all the data governance solutions that you hear about, they talk about the logical model. They say, if you have a logical model, then you keep the links. Okay, but keep the links, is a monumental effort. So if you avoid the logical model and you combine the logical model with the physical model, and then you have a global namespace, then every time you find a column with a name, you can identify without ambiguity. And without ambiguity, you can immediately attach the metadata. And if you can attach the metadata, you can automate the processes. You can say, what is the ownership? What is the retention? Do I need to do PII? Do I need to do whatever it is? So this is the first idea. Then I will take a zip. So the first idea, a global namespace. Give it a try. Of course, if you have already, I don't know, 3,000 columns in your system, I don't know how you can migrate, but it's an idea that I would explore. The second idea is to prototype in a simulator. So I think the web scale ruined everything, With the web scale, they started saying, do the model view controller, okay? So everything is a request response, and you are a developer. You can only do backend API and REST. We call REST is RPC, but whatever. We call it REST, who cares? But this is not the only computational model, okay? There are many computational models. There is the functional programming, there is SQL, there are rule engines, there are simulators. Now, okay, simulator is just a fancy word, okay? Let's make some example of simulators. Back in the university, probably some of us have done the network simulator. You want to test a topology, and you want to see, okay, if we use this congestion algorithm, do we have partition in the network or not? So we have a software that's not an HTTP server, thank God, and where we can model the reality of network devices, and we can get answer from this software that we write. So my argument is that we should rediscover these old ideas, of creating simulations, to try to solve hard problems, like simulating networks, like playing chess, playing Go. These are all systems, they belong to AI, okay? Is an AI that is not fancy, probably, but the rule engines that explain in 5 seconds is, if Socrates is human, all humans are mortal. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. That's the rule engine. That's a rule, okay? So you build a system, you build a simulator. It belongs to the family of reactive computation, if then is a reactive system. You feed your events. Your events can be anything, can be time, can be the data access request. You can model whatever you want. So what's the advantage of creating a simulator to prototype the solution of your governance problem? You get rid of accidental complexity. The systems are distributed. The data is messy. You need to have approximation. You know, in the simulator, you can start simple, evolve the simulator, evolve, and then eventually you will productionize it. You will not believe me. I believe you. Okay, you don't believe me. Okay, let's make some examples talking about a simulator. So we don't want to give a formal definition because we don't want to become prisoner of definitions. If we start saying, what is programming? Oh, this is the definition, write a backend service. It's game over. We will have a generation of developers creating backend services and thinking that this is programming. So let's not start from the definition. I think that's also the difference between AI and our brain. Our brain is very good in adapting rules. AI is not. It's always stupid. The rule is written like this, it will always be executed like this. Our brain is much better. Okay, so first step is don't think about definitions too much. A vague definition is actually can be an asset. Now, we talk about a simulator. We say it's a computational model. There is a rule engine. We write all the rules. It's like the chess game, the network simulator. What's going on there? There is a state, and the state evolves. The state evolves over time. Is a simulator, tick 1, tick 2, tick 3, tick 4. The simulator evolves, and you can model all. But we have already seen this kind of system. This kind of system, for example, is GitOps. What are you doing in GitOps? You are doing describe the state with Terraform, describe the state with the Helm charts, and that's your desired state. And then you have another software that is actually converging the production system to the desired state. So my idea here for you is this. I agree, I see that many people that don't believe that centralizing things will solve the problem. I will still give it a try because centralizing all the data in a simulator, describing the state that is the desired state, and compared to GitOps, where actually you use developers to do data entry instead of writing code, that is kind of a misuse of their time. You know, you can have this kind of situation that are already successful. So Argo CD, you can govern Kubernetes cluster with success. Terraform, you can govern successfully the cloud infrastructure. My point is, their system don't have rules. They are just this description of the desired state that is manually updated by a human. Imagine the potential if you build a simulator where you also write code that is evolving the Terraform in the needed Terraform. And by the way, Terraform, I guess, is the direct of JSON. So you already see that it's already data. And right now, I don't know why we decided to write Terraform and YAML files instead of writing code. So I need to go fast. I have only 1 minute. So let me finish with identify the problem space. Very quickly, the gist of this idea for you is the following. If the problem space is limited, you can create an interface and you can enable non-developers to get the job done. But if the problem space is not limited, then you need a developer. And so my advice for you is don't believe when people are saying, oh, we can solve any kind of governance problem. Let's start from the UI. It's very unlikely that it will work for you. Final slide, some links. So if you have never done simulators, the first link is for you, is Enclosure, is a rule engine that we use in OneFootball. Then it's about me, about Clojure if you are interested, and the link for these slides, but it was more about talking and not so much about slides. And then we are hiring if you want to play with these things, so we are doing some experiments. That's it.
Okay, I have some questions prepared. We will then also open up to alternative questions. And I quickly, before we start, I want to see a raise of hands who identifies themselves as a data engineer. Yes, okay, couple. Product analyst. Okay. Data scientist. You can raise your hand for many. Product engineer. Yes, okay. Data analyst. Yeah, okay. If I just say analyst, no one, no. Forget about being an analyst. Business analyst, even worse. Yes, great. So the reason why I think this is always interesting is there is this caste system in the titles that people have in the data space. And I think it's always interesting to see how people identify themselves. I think analyzing things and understanding businesses is a really, really valued role actually in every operation or organization. And people ultimately always strive for like an engineering role, which I find very interesting. If I didn't say your role, can you shout it out, please? Software engineer. Software engineer. Yeah, cool. Data software engineer. I love it. Analytics engineer. Any analytics engineers? Okay, cool. Who else? Digital analyst. Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Machine learning engineer. No one in machine learning cares about data quality. No, yeah, they all just think it's an extra mic. Here we go. Can you make sure you can pass it around?
Hello.
Okay, so I am going to just start with a round of to you all, an offer to invite people advice on what are some of the traps that folks fall into when it comes to data governance. Let's start with you, Alistair, if you feel confident.
Sure. I guess the trap is to try and do too much data governance. What I mean, let's say in the scope of what we're talking about today, in tracking. It's very easy to look at the Wild West that we have. I think most companies end up that way, and the way you get there, I guess, is we should also make sure that the other trap that goes along with too much data governance is we should be sure we don't need to aim for 100% data quality all the time. It's nice. We sort of, in the world of data quality and data governance, we always like to get there. But realistically, you've got to just aim for what the business needs require. So good enough is fine. And when you're a small startup, you're all working, just doing your tracking, just doing what you need to get your job done. I need to A/B test this feature, I need to ship this feature, etc., etc. And you just get the job done. And after some years of everybody doing this, you have your Wild West. And I think, like you were saying at the very start, then it's very easy to pivot into, let's do crazy amounts of central governance. And I think certainly in the way that we work in Delivery Hero, we've realized that that's never going to work in our organization. And so it's really then a way of finding a more human way to work with the teams to get everybody to work together on governance. Make sure that we have the right processes and tools in place.
I love that. I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to get support from Sölvi, maybe to bring up the Wild West slide on our screen. If you can, I think this is the computer. and we'll have it with us when we're talking about this. Because my takeaway from what you're saying, Alistair, is there are crucial data that we have, and then there are data that is like a long tail of stuff that it doesn't really matter what we're doing, and we should allow people to just run wild a little bit with that, I guess.
Yeah, the most important thing is not to slow the organization down unnecessarily.
Yeah, cool. Over to Alberto.
Yeah.
Traps that folk fall into when it comes to data governance.
Yeah, and so what I remember of the data governance nightmare that I live in the past is, yeah, it became so big and nobody was able to making sense anymore. So I would say complexity is the challenge of the digital era. These systems are super complex. They can break in different ways, and there is only one solution. It's not perfect. We have invented the machine that is the computer. We need to write the software, and then the software grows. We have ML that generates the software for us, but in the end, the system becomes distributed, become complex. I would say data governance is just one example of the products of the digital revolution. So the system, they become complex, they're expensive, they move slowly, and I think it's a cycle. So the startup is fast, it can pivot, so it can have the agility that the enterprise will never have. So I don't want to say that it will work. I think if you look at the bigger picture here, companies, they will be replaced. The companies of 60 years ago were unlikely are here. So only few of them. How many automotive cars were one century ago? And how many are left? And they go in this process of becoming bigger and bigger, but then they become slow. And then the Tesla arrives. And he has a completely disruptive approach. So I think the journey I see here is that you try with software to solve problems, but you cannot avoid the inevitable that companies are like artifact, like the others, and they have a life cycle, and there will be an end, and a restart, and reborn, a new generation of companies. So,
except Levi's. Levi's is still with us after a lot of time, because it just reminded me of because I used to work at a consumer company called QuizUp. And whenever we talked about QuizUp anywhere in Iceland and even in San Francisco, it always surprised me that people were like, I used to play QuizUp. I played a lot of Big Bang Theory, like the topic, or whatever. And it was so rewarding. Like anyone who talked about working at QuizUp, it was so like everyone knew about it. And then with Avo, it's a lot of behind the scene thing. But so like my grandma will never know what Avo does and whether it exists really. But the thing is, if we look at the gold digging rush 100 years ago, the longest lived companies are the people that sort of developed tools for the developers, the jeans makers, the ketchup makers, and the shovel and axe makers, and I think Avo and Stripe and things like that will be that too. But over to Vaishali. Traps that people fall into for data governance.
I will speak from my experience in Delivery Hero. I think there are three things that I think I could have fallen into, or I did maybe for a while. One is assuming that people who have implemented something or asking for something, they know about what they're asking and what's the impact for it. I think that works. That's not always true. And most of the time, they do not know exactly. So those organizations, those have built, or teams, those have built something, and we kind of assume that they know how it works and why it was required and why it was done this way. but that's not the case. And that's the gap that security data governance you will be filling. And I think the second one is, as what Alistair said, looking for 100% of data quality. I think identifying that problem space, as Alberto shared, is very important, and prioritizing the where is the biggest problem and how we can solve that. I think that's bringing, it's an 80-20% thing, right? Identify that 20% thing that brings the 80% impact, and there focus more from the governance perspective. And I think the third thing, which is I worked on multiple teams trying to define how the namespace should be. And there, I think the biggest problem, or something that I learned, is that we are not there to govern the data. We are actually there to solve or make quality better for a business user.
I love
So
that.
never be the blocker there. So try to work around and find the solution, that how we can solve it, rather than being very strict about what we what's defined or what's written, right? So having flexibility there and focusing on what most important and how we deliver impact together with our stakeholders is very important. Yeah.
I love that. That is also something that I relate to. Having a slight, I will admit this in this audience, slight OCD, for sure. Then it's very painful just to see someone sort of break data standards and name things in like a camel case when we have all united to a snake case, you know? But in some cases, yeah, it's like the 80-20% rule. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. I will allow myself to ask this question. Just a quick round for everyone. Starting with you, Vaishali. Has AVO influenced the way you think about event data quality in any way?
Well, it does. I think you all saw that, how it's influencing us. For me, particularly with AVO, is that how we can standardize it, but still have a flexibility around that. It's still different from for different needs. So I think that kind of flexibility for us, the idea is that, okay, you have an event, you require this, you require in this case, and then send it. But then there are different teams requiring same data in a different way at different time. And that kind of capability that we get from AVO, I think is really interesting and useful for us. And it's definitely solving a very big problem that we have within organization, and the organization structure that we talked about, that how big scale of multi-brand environment we work into.
Nice, thank you. Alistair.
I guess less so AVO, but more just the entire realm of tracking. So I'm not a product analyst or a tracking person as such. And so I got into this topic probably about 2 years ago with a lot of help from Nicole, who is our
Legend,
our
living legend.
expert. And really was learning about this entire topic, and then through that, what AVO is really about. And the main thing that I take from it all is really especially in Delivery Hero, but I think in many products, right, in many companies, the complexity of the problem is so vast, right? You have these products that many different teams are working on, and everybody's trying to get their job done. They're just throwing stuff out there. And then when somebody else wants to come along and change something, in some of our teams, we don't even know who are the people who implemented the thing first, or maybe the 10 different teams that implemented this. And so the complexity is somewhat mind-boggling. And so I think, coming back to the main thing that Vaishali mentioned in her talk earlier, the main topic for us really has been getting this single source of truth, getting everything written down in one place. And that's the main thing. It sounds so simple when you say it, right? It is nothing mind-blowing. Write your documentation in one place, but apparently it's very hard to actually naturally just do that.
Yeah, we are all prone to reactive damage control rather than proactive data management. That's one of the problems. Alberto, over to you.
So before Avo, I was thinking it's an impossible problem to solve based on the previous experience. Is that this nobody will ever crack this problem. Is we will have data quality issue forever at this scale. But then I
And then you walked
discovered.
into a corner and cried yourself to sleep. That's what I did.
Then actually was colleague of a colleague of a former colleague from Zalando that now is working in Delivery Hero, who told me, have a look at Avo. Okay, first four meetings, I didn't understand anything. It was like, I'm very slow. I have to be honest. I never understand the first time. It takes some time. So after they were very, very, very nice with me, they said, take by hand, this is the tool, you need it. Let us explain how it works. And then after four meetings, I was able finally to grasp how it works and how I could use it in OneFootball. Then I showed the tool to the CTO of OneFootball. He understood it immediately. So he said, buy it. So it's even funny because I was the data expert there. So I was supposed to understand faster than my CTO because it's more like, he was able to understand immediately, we need our buy it immediately, this is the budget. So I think that's what changed for me in data governance after starting using Avo.
Nice. Thank you for sharing, everyone. I want to squeeze in this question. If any of you has any insights to share about, which is maybe adjacent to the first question, but any surprises? What sort of most surprised you on your journey to improve data quality at both Delivery Hero and OneFootball? And I know this isn't like this is like a thing that we all have to think about when we think about it, but if you have any thoughts on this.
The biggest surprise.
Yeah.
So for me, the biggest surprise is recognizing patterns. So we have a brain that is very good in recognizing patterns. It's also our weak spot because we try to generalize when we should not. But the pattern, I'm not sure 100%.
Spoken like a true software engineer.
The pattern I see is back to one of the points I wanted to share during the presentation. Many solutions, they have this shape. They allow someone to describe the desired state, and then they have a target state. And so we have backend services, API, the cloud runtime. And I see this pattern also in Avo. In Avo, we enable non-technical people to come up with specs, They don't need to become developers. That's very nice. And this is our desired state, in my opinion. And then, of course, we want to enable the guys that are writing code to write code faster. How can we do that? Well, generate code. This is code that I don't need to write. So from the spec, we generate the code. The mobile engineer can go faster. He makes less errors. But then there is another thing that you miss, because after you have a desired state and the reality, you need to have a way to compare the two things. You need to compare the desired state with the reality. And they have this amazing tool that is the inspector. And I see also these tools in other systems like Argo CD, you have the drift detection. Terraform, you have also the drift detection. So I see this pattern that is, I think is a good recipe to build solutions.
I love that. I also love the shout out to the enable someone that isn't necessarily a data expert to actually write data specs. Yeah, I think that's that's a personal passion of mine. Yeah, game changer, he said. Oh, sorry.
No, I got a lot of resistance. The funny story that first we introduced Avo, people said, no, we don't need it. We build it ourselves. It's the all usual reaction of engineers. We're going to build a better solution. When? We don't have time. We need to build a product. They started saying, no, we cannot build we can build a better solution. And they wanted to do everything in JSON schema. But what are we going to train normal domain expert in making Git commits? What's going on here? I mean, these guys, they kind of try to apply the solution that they like to any kind of role. Thank God, we were able to, with the support of the CTO, to get Avo in production, and now they are the big advocates for Avo. No, so it's funny that they also changed their mind. Now they don't touch Avo; it's their favorite toy.
I love that. And this is one of my favorite things that you've shared in the past is like, you don't really have to use Avo anymore because you've sort of been able to onboard everyone. Over to you, Alistair.
So the question was, what was the biggest surprise?
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to my previous answer, really, in that I think the biggest surprise in the area was, let's say the paucity of the documentation in the past. And across all of our teams, I think only one solved it for themselves. They built a tool. So the software engineers, they went away, they built a tool, and it worked for them. And all of the other teams were just passing spreadsheets, Miro boards around back and forth. And we have quite big teams that until very recently didn't even know their own requirements, right? And they're trying to send this to many different platforms around the world, get them to implement it, but they didn't necessarily always have the perfect set of requirements themselves. And so, yeah, that would be the biggest surprise. It wasn't just the Wild West of implementation, it was the Wild West of documentation.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great framing. Over to you, Ojali. As a product manager for someone who's building the internal solution for this.
I think the biggest surprise for me is everyone wants good quality. Like everyone, if I talk to engineer, to product manager, product analyst, everyone is asking quality is bad, but no one knows how to fix it and how to fix it. So I think that's where the huge surprise for me lies. But on the side note, as what Alistair said, within Delivery Hero, if you're going to talk about is that how much do we assume that this is how it's working, and exactly in the back end it maybe not be, right? So internal processes, why we implemented something in a certain way, it's not there. It was in some people's mind, and I think we should download everyone's mind in documentation, and this is what we are trying to do with Avo as well, that just don't keep it to yourself, just share it and make it transparent. So I think it's such a simple problem, as Alistair said, is that having a centralized documentation, and we are not doing that. And I think that's basically the biggest, not a surprise, a bit of a shock, but yeah.
But this is also one of the reasons why we built Inspector, is like a lot of people want some of the data to be documented, but a lot of people also just run on their own. And for those two to be able to coexist, the people that want things to be documented need to have something in place that catches the work of the people that just go still rogue and sort of implement things in the wild. Why don't we wrap up with any advice that you have for larger organizations looking to strengthen their data quality? Potentially a way to look at this question would be like where to get started maybe, or any advice.
Yeah, I would say the case study that I presented, identify the specific problem based on its impact, and then try to solve it, come around with a framework and what needs to be done clearly, and then replicate it. I think this has really been successful for us. We focused on just one global service requirement. We identified what exactly was the issue, how we can fix it, and what kind of impact it's bringing. And now we have all kind of a framework around it, that how to solve this kind of problem. So first we need is, tell me, what do you mean by data quality? You would be surprised how many teams do not know what's their own quality criteria is. Like when they say the quality is poor, what does exactly mean for them in very I would say technical terms, or algorithm or something. So this is basically what I would advise, is that just find one problem prioritize this based on impact and solve it, and then come up with a framework and then just replicate it. Because one thing is building from the very start, but I think we are all in the boat where now we are migrating towards good quality. And that's a process. You just can't solve everything just in one go. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
Just to sort of take on a little bit what Vaishali said, my advice would be to really think of what it is, what is your data quality? Turn it into a relatively simple KPI, something you can measure, and something you can track over time. And so that then, as you're working on this very complicated, hard problem, you can show progress and hopefully you can show impact.
I love that.
And this is one of the things that we've been very successful in with Perseus over the last year. We set ourselves last year at one North Star KPI, and we worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. It gave the team a focus when they're communicating with the platforms and the global services. You still have this focus. We're working towards this. And it brought actual revenue in the end because
Sick. That's good.
we'd set, as it turned out, very much the correct KPI last year. This year, we're sort of branching out into more areas, and say on the search topic, we've got a KPI, like our main KPI, we're following that. We're trying to improve the whole data quality around search by focusing in one area. I think it really helps.
This is sort of like Jason, to just general advice around like, don't try to boil the ocean really. It's both like setting measurable goals. I love that. And also set yourself a goal that you can also actually deliver something towards incrementally, I think is a great takeaway there.
Yeah, my advice is to find a good partner. So the problem is harder. There are differences between the one company and the other. So you will have probably a better product from a vendor if you partner with the vendor. So you will become a design partner. So the end game here is that you get the solution very early, and then it's the job of the vendor to generalize it so they can sell it and cover the cost that, of course, is bigger than just selling to one customer. So they need to scale out. So I would say partner with the vendor is a good strategy for companies.
Nice. Don't build, buy. It's sort of what you're saying to say. I relate to that. From my perspective, though, I always have to say there is a strong tendency to want to build in many organizations. And I think it's important that we also respect that. So whenever I talk about this problem, I always tell people happily what they have to build to actually get there. I guess partly because it's not a straightforward feat to actually build those things.
I think I agree with you, Stefania, because the point is, what is the secret source of Delivery Hero? I don't think he's cracking the problem of data governance. It's something else. So your secret sauce, you want to build it. If you are TomTom, probably you don't want to buy the cartography. You want to build it yourself.
Exactly.
So in Delivery Hero, there is secret sauce somewhere. The guys, they know where is it, and they are building there.
Nice.
But you should buy and partner with vendors where it's not critical for your success.
Perfect. I guess that's exactly the same message that Jeff Lawson, founder of and CEO of Twilio for 16 years, said in the book, Ask Your Developer, who had exactly this message. Like, in some cases, you really need to make sure you're building. In other cases, you shouldn't. So with all of this, thank you all so much for joining us today. If there are any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out. We will also hang back here. We have some pizzas there. We have some more drinks there. And then we will want to continue the conversation a little bit longer here and then online. So thank you so much for joining us today. And give it a round of applause to this legendary group of people.